Okay, welcome everybody to GPN Technology's year-end webinar series, Visualize Your Success in 2020. My name is Yvonne Pelkey and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. It's great to see so many familiar names in the attendee list, and welcome to our new attendees. On that note, just a few housekeeping items just to go over. First, this session is being recorded, so to help reduce that background noise, we have you in listen-only mode. We do love questions and encourage you to utilize the chat feature within Zoom. Just a side note, this is a pretty powerful presentation today, and there is a lot of content to cover. So while we want your questions, please, we're going to just know that we're going to hold those towards the end of today's presentation. The recording will be available by the end of the week. If you're a current EDGEPro user, you'll be able to find that within the Need Help section within EDGEPro. And everybody who's in attendance today will receive an email with the link to the recording. If you want to learn more about EDGEPro, you'll find a link for a free 90-day trial, so take advantage of that if you would like. And as always, your feedback is incredibly valuable for the continued success of our webinars. So towards the end of this presentation, you will find a 5-question survey. Please complete that for us so that we can continue to provide the best business tools and resources. Today is the third session of our year-end webinar, and our topic is the medical model, making the transition to providing the highest level of care. You know, there are so many reasons why we would want or even need to consider adding medical technology or services into an existing optometric practice. And when I think about our featured speaker, he and his partners not only implemented 1, but 2 medical services within the past year and a half. And I think it's really cool that he has come on board. He's going to explain his why in adding medical components to his practice. What were the steps that they took to ensure success, and the challenges that they faced along the way. So I have met Dr. Michaels probably about 6 years ago when I was brought on to partner with the practice in a consulting capacity. And one of the things that you're going to hear Dr. Michaels talk about today is making sure that we have a wow factor within our practice. And I can truly tell you that when you walk into Family Vision Care of Richmond, out of Richmond, Virginia, you definitely have a wow factor. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you today our featured speaker, Dr. Michaels. Dr. Michaels, would you like to share a little bit about yourself while I switch slides here pretty quick, and then we'll...
Sure.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and my practice is a 7-doctor practice. We have 4 owners and 3 associates, recently brought on vision therapy, which we'll be talking about today, and starting myopia management. We have spent a lot of time investing in technology and trying to make our practice stand out. And like Yvonne said, to provide a wow factor for people who are walking in the door. And that's a common theme of the comments that we get, is the discussion about people being wowed by the technology, and so it's been a great opportunity to serve the community here with that.
Dr. Michaels, I'll just, I'm super excited to hear this presentation, and there's a lot of doctors that are out here, business owners out here in the industry that, get to a point within their practice. For example, this one right here. If this was a doctor who was, reviewing, where they rank within the industry, we would find that, they're doing incredibly well. They're in the top 10%, the top 25% within their optical. From a business perspective, They are, you know, in the top 10% of their collections in their optical revenue per exam and the clinic revenue per exam. You know, and at some point in time, this practice is going to plateau. And, you know, you're going to have to start thinking, being a little bit more forward thinking in what we can do to continue to elevate this practice to the next level, and for continued success, not only tomorrow, but in the future to come. And so.
And that's something that we looked at. We used our EDGE data very often to try to analyze where are we as a practice. We felt pretty comfortable with where we were, but we also felt like we had to find some windows of opportunity. And while our ability to use GPN for the consulting services to help to manage our optical services and global services, we realized that there's still a trend in the world that people are looking at other places for traditional optometric material services, specifically online. And so we wanted a way to try to expand our services so that we would remain relevant in the community, forward thinking 10, 20, and 30 years down the road. And so with that, we'll get into adding some of these services. And so Yvonne, you ready? All right, so let's talk about this. We're going to go through three different things: medical services, vision training, and then myopia management. And so we looked at our glasses and contact lens sales, and while we feel like we were comfortable with them, we felt like there was still a trend if we were looking over a 10-year period of time where it wasn't as successful as it had been in the past. And so we looked to GPN to help us to help improve how we provided glasses and contact lenses, but assuming that those services don't grow. Let's say that we didn't take any of GPN's advice and those continued downward. We wanted a way to set ourselves apart from any other practice out there. And so we really sought ways to try to provide a wow experience. And so while if you're a new grad and you want to practice at the highest level using the most technology possible, or you're somebody who's a more seasoned person who owns a practice and you want to figure out, can you make your practice saleable, if that's a word, you've got to have your own why for why you would want to incorporate other medical services into your practice. So as we look at trying to add some different practice, different technologies into practice, you got to look at the state laws. And so I use Massachusetts as an example, and every optometrist knows that Massachusetts remains the only state that's not able to prescribe glaucoma treatment, glaucoma eye drops. And so if you're in Massachusetts, you might address your technological advancing a little bit differently than, let's say, somebody who was in Oklahoma or Kentucky, Louisiana, or Arkansas who have laser privileges. Or somebody in Alaska, Idaho, New Mexico, Virginia, and Tennessee who have what we refer to as an exclusion law, which basically means they can incorporate any medical device treatments with the exclusion of some very specific things. Most of the time that's going to exclude things like LASIK eye surgery and cataract surgery. And so knowing what your state law is going to be important. Above all, I encourage everybody to get involved with your state association so that you can help to push forward your scope so you could be using all of the latest technological advances that come down the pike. So as we look at a list of some more traditional types of equipment on the left-hand side, most optometry offices are going to have visual fields and fundus cameras, topographers, and OCTs. A little bit less common might be tear labs and A-scans. We'll get into A-scan discussion today with myopia management. The eyelid and meibomian gland dysfunction devices that are now available, as well as intense pulsed light, or IPL, and radio frequency. And IPL and radio frequency really are going to be two pathways that optometry has to serve the dry eye community with IPL and with radio frequency for removing lid lesions. Those are two technologies that your state law really needs to be able to incorporate to be able to provide that level of care. So if you were looking to add any type of device, depending on what type of practice you have, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting the best education possible. And so we encourage you to get educated about all this new technology through AOA or SECO or any of the state meetings that are offering some advanced procedure type courses. One of the things I want to draw your attention to is the Oklahoma Advanced Procedure course. If you can, and they take that show on the road a lot, and if it comes to a state near you, I highly encourage you to get involved with that and get certified at the highest level with both lasers and lid procedures. Anytime we're going to look to incorporate any kind of new technology into the practice, then we got to be able to look at and determine, can we break even with that device? And so just the most rudimentary way of evaluating that, we look at the cost of the device divided by the reimbursement, and that would equal the number of patients I would have to see in order to break even. And so you need to know, if you're going to bring in some new technology into your office, can you support that many patients? And so, but other costs that you have to keep in mind that are also going to come along with buying any new equipment would be some service agreements. So I look at some of the devices that we have. We've got some devices with service agreements that are annually $5,000 a year. Some of them are $5,000 to $1,000 a year. You just want to make sure that you are incorporating that into the long-term analysis as you look to understand that just buying the device is not going to be the only cost. What I didn't get into today was, what is the cost of adding additional staff to using that technology? And also you want to look at the cost of recertification of devices. So for example, if somebody were to buy a radio frequency device used, let's say, and they've got to get that recertified, sometimes the recertification cost, even though you bought the device used, can cost up to $10,000 just to get it recertified for use. And so those are some of the hidden costs that you might experience when buying some equipment. But if we look at just an Optos, for an example, and I'll use the fictitious number of, let's say it's $100,000 and it was reimbursing at $30, I'd have to see 3,000 patients in order to break even. Can I support that many patients in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years? And does that make it worth it for me to buy an Optos? An A-scan, which we have to use for myopia management, and we'll talk about today. Let's say we bought one for $17,000. The reimbursement is not going to be sent off to insurance. And the reimbursement for doing axial length measurements is probably not going to be an itemized component of my myopia management. And so if I'm charging, let's say, $1,000 for myopia management, then I would be able to determine that it would take me about 17 of them to be able to break even. The biggest thing when you're incorporating medical devices is you want to be able to measure how often you're using the equipment. And so this is one of the big things that we use the Edge for in the CPT breakout, which hopefully we'll see at the end of this show today. But we look at what is the number of procedures that we're doing across the board divided by how many refractions or how many exams we're doing. Let's just say we were doing 85% of all of our patients were getting some kind of a medical device procedure, OCT, visual field, fundus photos, whatever the case may be. It's a number that we look at not to try to drive more services, but it's a way that we look at, are we delivering what we determine to be the standard of care for our patients? And so we look at that number often to try to determine, are we meeting the standard of cares that we want to set up? And if we have a doctor on staff who's, let's say, is doing less percentages, then we look at why. Well, it could be as simple as they're seeing a lot younger patients and they may not have as much of a need. And it also could be that through record review that they're not always ordering the technology that they can be in our office. I want to highly encourage the optometrist to look at the EOBs and make sure that you're getting reimbursed for the technology. Too often what I see is that the EOBs come in, the optometrist doesn't pay attention to it, and the staff, once they see that it wasn't paid for, they just write off the expense of it. And nobody ever follows up on it enough to find that, oh, there was a simple fix for why we didn't get reimbursed. It could have been an ICD code that went associated with it. My point in this is that you want to make sure anytime you're bringing in new technology that you are personally following your reimbursements to make sure that it is getting reimbursed to what your expectations were. And then I strongly encourage, if you're going to bring in new technology, you want to educate your staff on a regular basis. We do it monthly. And what we try to do in our office is to create some autonomy for the staff and decision making. So for example, if we have a dry eye patient who comes in who I would have wanted a tear lab done on that patient, we create enough education where the staff doesn't have to wait for me to say, hey, I want you to do a tear lab. They anticipate based on the history when they should and should not be doing tear labs. And so the better educated that you can make your staff, the more autonomy and the better off it can be for you and your practice. And then finally, when we're looking at trying to add medical technology, the relative value units can go down over time. So when, let's say Medicare is an example, prices out how much they're going to reimburse you for a given service, Medicare looks at what are the relative value units, how much time does it take and how much energy does it take to provide that service. And it is not uncommon to have a new procedure have a fierce spike up in use and then get re-evaluated for its RVUs, in which case it results in a downward adjustment. I think that some of the ERG and VEPs, recently the ERGs had some revaluing of them. And so you want to make sure that you're staying current with the physician fee schedule annually, and typically that is going to come out sometime in November of each year, and you can find if any new CPT codes were revalued and brought down. And so that oftentimes is a reason for why somebody was getting paid, let's say arbitrarily $160 for a service, and then the next year they're only getting paid $84. And so looking at the physician fee schedule helps to point you into the direction for why that may have happened. This is the iPhone, the first generation iPhone, brought to you in June 2007. And, you know, I can pretty much guess that everybody on this webinar today is no longer walking around with their first generation iPhone. And we are so quick to go get the latest generation of iPhone. And since 2007, if you're an iPhone user, you probably have gone through 2, 3, or 4 or 5 generations of iPhones as they've come. No doubt dropping $1,000 each time that they come. We are so quick to get that latest phone, and yet we're so labored in the decision-making process to bring new technology into our practice that we could easily finance over a period of 2, 3, or 4 years and have it easily paid off. The wow effect that new technology brings is amazing in the practice. And just like I'm not saying to be cavalier about your purchasing decisions, but definitely the analysis and paralysis that occurs that's not taken to the same degree when we're looking at our phones. And so I encourage you to get involved with the process of trying to incorporate new technology as a way to try to help yourself. And a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King: whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. That applies to your technology. And so bringing in new technology to help make yourself set above the crowd from others is a great way to try to continue to grow your practice. And from firsthand experience, it's helped to really grow our practice quite a bit. So I want to talk about adding vision therapy services. This is something that we did approximately 1.5 years ago. Some of the obstacles that we had to figure out when we knew that we wanted to add vision therapy to our practice was who was going to do it. And so do we hire a new doctor? Do we have somebody from within do it? And the route that we took was we hired a new graduate. And that new graduate was brought in to do solely vision therapy training. And obviously the options are do only vision therapy or also incorporate primary care. Our goal was to try to grow that practice as much as we could. And so we brought our doctor in literally 1 day a week. And as the clinic grew, we would expand the number of days that she was in our office. And within literally just a couple of weeks, we went from 1 day to 3 days. And within by the time the first year hit, we added a 4th day. And so we're currently doing vision therapy in our office 4 days a week. That it literally expanded as we went. And so adding vision therapy in our practice, we looked at trying to find ways to get the evaluating devices that we would need, as well as the training devices. And so for less than $4,000, we were able to bring in a lot of different equipment that our doctor felt like would make her the most successful. And as you look at that list, and if there's anything on that list that you look at and you say, man, I don't even know what some of that is, then that's a great reason to be bringing in a doctor to help run the vision therapy clinic. Because for a lot of people who've been in practice for 10 or 20 years, we haven't touched some vision therapy equipment since the time that we were in school. And so, but the point in this is that for less than $4,000, you can get started with a clinic and expand as you go. Once we made that commitment to try to bring vision training into our office, we then had to look at how are we going to identify the patients within our practice. And so you can determine whatever the best tests you think are going to be that are going to help to identify whether it's near point of convergence, phoreas, facilities, just by history. But one of the most useful tools that we found that identified most of our patients was this thing called the Reading Symptom Survey. And we gave this survey to everybody who was under the age of 18. And so patients would check off anytime they had any of these things listed, and you would be pleasantly surprised that this one sheet of paper, which takes little time, has helped to bring most of our patients from within our practice into the vision therapy clinic. And it was easier for the patients to understand, especially the parents to understand if it was school-related function issues that are illustrated here. It was easy for the parents to be able to put point A to point B, meaning their symptoms of point A and what we felt like was a help to them, which was our training services. So it was something that I highly recommend get incorporated because it will help to feed the vision therapy clinic quite a bit. And so one of the obstacles that you have when you're trying to incorporate vision training is who's going to be doing it. Obviously, the OD is going to be driving it. And as we started to grow, we had to get her some help. And so we started to educate one of our technicians in how to provide some assistance in the training and the evaluation process, just like you would have a technician help you with the examination process. And so while we did start with just one optometrist, it quickly grew into having to train staff for that purpose. And scheduling becomes quite a bit of an issue because unlike your traditional eye exam, which you're just going to be scheduling one visit at one point in time in the future, when somebody comes in for vision therapy, they're going to have an initial evaluation and then schedule 15, 20, 30 visits coming forward in the future. And so that definitely takes a lot more time than your staff being on the phone scheduling one eye exam at a time. And so understanding that if you're going to be having somebody do that scheduling, it may not be somebody at your checkout desk if you only have one person at that desk, because scheduling 15, 20, 30 visits could, in an electronic health record, take 20 minutes of time. And so that's something you want to keep in mind as you're going through this process. So these are some of the forms that we started to incorporate in our service. I talked about the Reading Symptom Survey form a few minutes ago. Our medical questionnaire, of course, is pretty standard, but we also include some opportunity to discuss and talk about occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. What we have in our clinic is now we have a lot of patients who are going through multiple different therapies, not just vision therapy, and referrals are starting to come in from OTs and PTs now that the service has been up and running for a while. One of the forms we had to incorporate was a financial understanding form. It's basically an acknowledgement for the patient to understand the time commitment and the money commitment, and also a lot of discussion about how insurance works and also how insurance does not work. We wanted our patients to have a really great understanding going into the process so that there were no surprises. And it turned out that having a 3-page form that basically went through all of the expectations turned out to be an effective way to communicate a lot of information in a short amount of time. And here in Virginia with Blue Cross has a very specific form that they require patients to sign at every single visit. So if you have signed up for 15 sessions of vision therapy, and there is a form that they have to sign at every single one of those visits. Some of the miscellaneous things that could take time that you want to also be thinking about is your optometrist going to be writing letters to teachers or to other people summarizing what the findings are and what the reasonable accommodations may be. If your patients are having IEPs, individual education plans, or 504 arrangements being made, will your doctor be helping to coordinate with that? And then there's some consult time involved in this process, which can be something that allows the doctor to meet one-on-one with the parents, or one of our staff members to meet one-on-one with the parents to explain what is VT and to be able to set up that training schedule. If you don't want that training schedule to be set up at your checkout desk, which again could take up to 20 minutes. And then I encourage you to reach out to your community, to other ODs, other OTs, and PTs that are in the community. What we do, if a patient gets referred to us by another optometrist, there's a flag or an alert put on their electronic health record that says Jane Doe, the patient, was referred by this optometrist. And what that is a flag to all of our staff to really not sell our services, to make sure that that patient is getting back to that optometrist. And so we have had people who have come into our optical who were referred in by other ODs and wanted to buy glasses. And so we tell them that they're not allowed to buy glasses from us and that they have to go back to their optometrist. And then we pick up the phone and call the optometrist to say, hey, your patient was looking at glasses, they want to buy some glasses, so why don't you call them and help to make arrangements for that. And so that usually goes pretty well overall. This is the coding that we use for vision training. For our initial assessment, we use these two codes. That visit usually takes 1 hour. We've tried to do it in 45 minutes, and we've had to stretch it out to being an hour. And I think that probably as time goes by with your OD providing that service. So for example, our OD was new to practice. This was literally their first job out of graduation. Allowing an hour is probably a good time frame. That may get to be a shorter time frame down the road, but an hour is probably a good time frame. Each vision training session is 1 hour, and we use these two codes. That 92499 code is a miscellaneous code. It's an eye care code that's miscellaneous. It doesn't get recognized by insurance, but we gave it a price, and we wanted to be able to account for some of the services that we were doing. And even though insurance doesn't recognize it, there's a lot of vision training that is should be reimbursed, and even though insurance doesn't recognize it, we still will bill it. And so most of those 92499s get denied, and the patient ends up paying for that service. And then we also do something called visual perceptual evaluations. These are 2-hour exams with testing of how vision is processed. And so we use another 92499 code for that. And all of your codes have to be set up based on what you think your chair time is. We'll get into a little bit of chair time discussion when we get into myopia management. And so that's where we're going to lead right now. We've also added myopia management to our office. And, what's the big deal about myopia at this point? Statistically, 50% of the planet's going to be myopic by 2050. And this really has to be treated as an axial elongation or retina disease type problem. This is not just, oh, I had to wear glasses. And we all know what retina detachments and other problems exist because of axial elongation. And so here's the question I throw out at you is, who's going to be the first optometrist sued for not advocating techniques to reduce axial elongation or myopia management? And this isn't going to be anytime soon because it's not a part of the standard of care, and there's not even an FDA approval for myopia management. But the point in this is that we have techniques that are available that can help to reduce the overall axial elongation, and eventually somebody's going to be sued for not advocating for services. So myopia management for us comes down to 3 things: Ortho K, soft contact lenses, and atropine. And so as we talk about Ortho K, I encourage you to try several different brands of Ortho K. iSpace is a brand, and it is, what's neat about that is it's automated with our topographer. So if we take a topography and it will allow us to simulate a lens over that cornea, make some adjustments right there in the software, and then order the lens from there. And so it's a pretty awesome use of technology, especially wow effect for the patients to be able to see something like that where the lenses are getting designed right in front of them. Fit sets can also be done. So like traditional RGP fitting. Context and Paragon and some other companies offer some fit sets. And then there's a company called Euclid where there is no fit set required. If you just gave them the RX, the Ks, and the horizontal visible iris diameter, they would they advocate that they could get a first fit success within 87% of the time in the first fit. I encourage you to do some Ortho K on your staff, get a good feel for how the technology works, especially if you're going to be trying several different brands of Ortho K products. Soft contact lenses, this comes down to using distance center multifocals. Natural View makes the only distance center daily multifocal that I'm aware of. It was made for presbyopia. It's got about a 2.5 diopter ad. It's available through ADB. The company is called Visioneering Technologies. To my knowledge, I don't believe that I actually have a rep with Visioneering Technologies, but we order those lenses through our vendor. And of course, you could use monthly contact lenses like the Biofinity D lenses, but we try to put everybody into soft contact lenses. And you know, there's some peripheral distortion with it, and some patients, some of the kids don't love it, and some don't notice it, but it is at this point the only daily distance viewing multifocal. Cooper Vision has made one, but it's not available in the United States yet. And so they're going through an 8-year study right now in 4 different countries. And what they've been able to show is with their lenses through about, I think, year 4, year 5, a 50 to 69% reduction in axial length and diopter growth. So they got a great product. Unfortunately, the FDA, they haven't pushed it through the FDA yet. And then finally, we've got atropine. And so atropine comes down to ordering some compounded less than 1% atropine. We could put everybody on 1% atropine and they'd walk around dilated and accommodative paresis all day. And so while that is effective, patients, especially kids, obviously don't love that, just as we would expect. There was a study done by Jeff Cooper who showed that a 0.02% concentration was the highest amount of atropine that you could give without any noticeable dilation or paresis of accommodation. There's no magic number for how much, which atropine compound should I use. A couple of different studies have looked at various doses of it. I encourage you to look at some of these landmark studies to get a little bit more acclimated to the thought process of atropine use. But it basically is going to come down to you picking a concentration dose, and if it's not effective enough in slowing down growth, you can always increase the dosage and obviously monitor for those side effects of dilation and accommodative paresis. And using atropine can also be supplemented with Ortho K or soft multifocal contact lenses if it was needed. For example, if some soft contacts weren't giving you enough of a slowdown that you wanted. This is a couple of the compounding pharmacies that are available, and there are more, but you can contact them directly to see how their shipping direct to the patient works. And finally, with our myopia management, this is not approved by the FDA for myopia reduction or myopia management. There is nothing approved for myopia reduction or myopia management. So it's off-label use. We have our written contract with our patients that discusses what off-label means, as well as what the risks are to using Ortho K or soft contact lenses. A study by Bullimore in Optometry Vision Science, the Academy Journal, showed that extended wear Ortho K was just as risky as soft contact lenses. The risk is microbial keratitis. And then our written contract also includes the financial disclosures of myopia management. The equipment that we had to use incorporate with this was a new topographer. And so I would say that the 2 most common ones that are being used by people for Ortho K that I see are the Medmont and the Oculus. The one that we bought was the Medmont. I'm not a paid spokesman for any company that I'm talking about today. And then a must-have is an A-scan. You have to be able to measure axial length if you're going to be doing myopia management. And while our tradition has always been dioptric value, this really comes down to, are you slowing down the axial length growth? And so in our office, we bought a used IOL master, and it works fantastic. So patients are going to follow up a little bit more frequently with you when you are doing myopia management. And so the number of visits is going to vary depending on which of these three avenues you've chosen. The point in this is that patients are coming in at least quarterly, if not more often, especially with some Ortho K fits. You're going to be following those at 1 day and 1 week and 1 month. And as success is being seen, you're going to still follow up with them quarterly. And so you want to know what your chair time is worth so you can set your pricing appropriately for the avenue that you have chosen for your patient. This is a list of what we would do in a lot of our visits. Axial lengths at quarterly, topographies when they're coming in with the contact lenses, and of course refractions. With atropine, we're obviously monitoring pupil size and accommodative amplitude. A lot of our time is spent in education and counseling, as you can imagine, at the front end and also throughout the process. And one of the things we do at the front end of it is we will use this calculator, which is the Brien Holden Vision Institute calculator. And what it'll allow you to do is to anticipate, based on peer-reviewed journals, if you did nothing for this patient, let's say you would enter in that they are, what their ethnicity is. It's either comes down to Asian or Caucasian. You would enter in their age and their current refractive error, and then what type of treatment are we going to be doing? Ortho K, atropine, soft contacts, and it'll show you what your potential growth would be if you did nothing, which is in red, 6.33 diopters, and then what we can expect with an average slowdown down to 3 diopters if we were, in this case, using low-dose atropine. And so it becomes a good educational tool in the exam room to show patients and their parents what the potential effect of treatment would be. So if you're just getting started with myopia management, then I encourage you to, of course, get educated as much as you can. One of the best conferences you can go to is the Vision by Design conference, which holds their annual meeting in May. Review of myopia management was an e-newsletter that comes out by email. And then the Brien Holden Vision Institute, which is one of the resources I just showed, has some great information on it as well. So how much should you charge for your myopia management? You know, that's going to vary depending on what your chair time is. And so you want to be, you know, what somebody in downtown Manhattan is going to charge may be different than what somebody in Richmond, Virginia might charge. And so you have to evaluate your chair time and be able to get a price for each that's going to be the best for you. In the end, we're incorporating a lot of different new technologies that are available. These technologies it can be medically driven, vision therapy, myopia management. In the end, do what Nike says and just do it. Yvonne?
Dr. Michael, so what a powerful presentation. Like, I think that this is going to help a lot of doctors and business owners, you know, figure out a way in which it continues to help grow their practice. And you went way above and beyond in providing, you know, even further additional resources and things to help doctors be successful. So list of questions here for you right out of the gate.
Okay.
So your survey that you created or you pulled from another resource. So at the very beginning on your vision therapy, where
yes.
What was the name of the survey?
Reading Symptom Survey.
And then the next question is, can they have a copy of yours?
Yes, I have to find what the what if any copyright was on it, and
Okay.
if it was available, then I will. I'm writing that down now.
Yeah, and so for anybody out there that would like a copy of that, you can reach out directly to Dr. Michaels. His email address was up on the screen just a few moments ago. We'll get that for you. The next question is in regards to the survey, the questionnaire. Do you use that on all patients, or are you?
We do the reading symptoms
selective?
survey on anybody who's under the age of 18.
Okay, perfect. Is that something that's just part of their paperwork that you do normally? So somebody who is 18
Yes.
and under, you include that. Okay.
You're 18 and under, you just automatically get it, and no It's not prompted by anything other than your age.
Okay, perfect. And then thinking about myopia control, there's so many different options that you can do. How do you, have you found one to be more effective than another?
No,
Or do you have,
no, I think that's going to depend on a lot of different things. So, for example, not everybody wants their kids sleeping in contacts overnight, which is what Ortho K is going to take. And if a patient came in and they were 7 years old, while a lot of 7-year-olds can do well with Ortho K, not all of them can. So sometimes only drops can work for them. At this point, there's no magic treatment option available for trying to slow down myopia.
I think the good thing is that there's more options than just one.
Right.
And I guess in your research, did you find that if you limit yourself just to one specific course of treatment plan, I would imagine that you've kind of shut the box, so to speak. So you've got to be open to more treatment options.
I think that anybody who's in this, doing this a lot would tell you, you have to be open to all three of those options and can't narrow it down, because you're just not going to get, soft contacts definitely is not going to be the way to go for everybody. You couldn't do astigmatism correction with it. And so that would take out a lot of people. I think that the biggest thing is, there's no doubt, and if you go to any meeting, let's say you went to the AOA's optometry's meeting in June, the number of continuing education classes for myopia management is continuing to expand. SECO, the same thing. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest opportunities that we have in this field to date is myopia management.
So getting all of your services out there, the myopia treatment plan or the management and the vision therapy, besides just reaching out to other ODs, other practices that you might have partnered with, was there any other social media or any other marketing that you did to bring awareness other than just partnering with other doctors?
For us, especially as we're getting started, is just looking internally. So not necessarily advertising externally through social media, but looking internally and trying to get our patients up to speed on what services. So people who are already in our door. The biggest thing with myopia management at this point is it's not FDA approved for me to prescribe Ortho K lenses to control your myopia. That there's no FDA approval for that. So I can't go onto my website or onto my social media saying that this will help you. I can say this may slow it down. There's some fine lines between how things get advertised in an arena that doesn't have FDA approval. And so I strongly encourage you that as you go through this process with your written contracts, to have a lawyer vet that for you, and as well as any advertising that you may do, because the distinguishing factor between what the FDA has approved and what the FTC will allow you to say is those are some fine lines, and because this arena has not been well established and no FDA approval exists for myopia management, it's something to tread very lightly on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. In thinking of myopia management, follow-up visits and getting them to come back. So it's a two-part question. One, how compliant are patients to return back, and how much time do you allocate for those follow-up visits?
Right now, we're allocating more time than needed, because as we get started, it's like anything we do in eye care. I can do an exam faster today than I could when I was fresh out of school, and down the road I'll be able to do myopia management visits faster than now. So the last thing you want to do is, right now it's going to be incorporated as a part of our regular schedule, and the last thing you want to do is derail the 2 o'clock and beyond because you got caught up spending too much time in a myopia management visit. So early on, allow more time, get yourself comfortable with the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great advice. So the million-dollar question here is, you've added in two medical components, your vision therapy and your myopia management. So the question is, like, how long has it taken you to see a return on your investment? And like, what would be potentially an expectation?
The beginning part, I'll take the myopia management part first. For myopia management, I would guess that it's going to take you 6 months just to get to the point of offering it as a service. And so what I mean by that is, most optometrists don't have A scans in their office. Most offices don't have their staff up to speed on how do you even answer questions about what myopia management is, and how do you curtail any staff member from saying this will slow down your myopia, because you just can't make that statement. So 6 months to get it up and running to a point of being comfortable. And then from that, enrolling patients in my office with 7 doctors is going to be different than enrolling patients with 1 doctor. And so obviously, again, you got to go back to your own chair time to determine how much is this going to really cost me in the end. What I tried to do was to just show some of the expenses that are going to be involved with it. And I would venture to think that, if you don't have a topographer that is accurate enough to do Ortho K, then you're going to have to buy a new one. And if you don't have an A scan, you're going to have to go out and get one. And I would imagine that there's probably a run on used A scans nowadays, and that the price of that demand is probably going up over time.
Awesome. One other question, could you just quickly, off the top of your head, do you remember what the name of the conferences were that you recommended, or
the
website for myopia management?
Sure. Myopia management, the best conference that I'm aware of is the Vision by Design conference. And so that's the International Ortho K Association and Myopia Management Association. I can't remember the exact acronym, but Vision by Design is the name of the conference. It's in May every year, and they have what is referred to as a boot camp. If you're a first-time attendee, you want to go to their boot camp and then go to all of their sessions. And so it will essentially fuel you to be able to be a lot more comfortable with myopia management. It is basically 4 days of intense information, but you will come out of that thing energized and believing that you have a role to be playing in this arena.
That's awesome. I think that was all of the questions, Dr. Michaels. Want to thank you so much for being part of our webinar series, and really appreciate you being one of our speakers. And again, like, if anybody has any questions, we did put Dr. Michaels' email down in the chat window, so please feel free to reach out to him. He's happy to share whatever additional resources and mentorship that he can do for you to help you be successful. And as a reminder, there is a survey down in the window, so please take a moment to fill out the survey and complete that. And just want to thank everybody for attending, and hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you guys back next week, Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Michaels. All righty.